Ecos Group, and the moderator is Eleni Varvitsiotti, journalist. The panel is going to take place in English. Eleni Varvitsiotti, journalist at Financial Times.
So I'm very happy to be here amongst distinguished speakers in this lovely space and in this great initiative by eKathimerini to discuss a sector that accounts about 1/4 of Greece's GDP, and its growth and development is so closely intertwined with the development of the country. This topic also seems to gain more traction every year, more heated discussions, not only amongst stakeholders and investors, but between local communities. So I'm very happy that we will have an opportunity to talk with you. Let me introduce the guests. We have Andrian Messerli, President for Europe, Middle East and Africa for 4 seasons, which means that you are overseeing hotel operations in more than 40 destinations and 20 under development in all these areas of the world. So it would be very interesting to see where you place Greece and how easy or really hard it is to do business here. And Andreas Andreadis, who is the CEO and co-managing partner of Sun Ecos Group, which owns and operates Sun Resorts and Ecos Resorts in Greece, but also he's the only Greek hotelier who has managed to operate abroad and specifically in Spain. And he's one of the few in the industry that also has significant experience in policy making. He was the president of the board of directors of SETE for 6 years. And he has also served as president of the board of directors of the Hellenic Hotel Federation. So welcome, gentlemen. As you have both experience doing business in Greece and in other countries, I want to ask you to begin with, why are you investing in Greece? What are the reasons beyond natural beauty, weather, and history? Is it the environment, the investment environment, is it stability? What are the reasons that you are choosing Greece? Adrian?
Well, first and foremost, I might start by saying that we are a private company. So we are not a publicly listed company, meaning that we don't have the same shareholder pressure to grow as a company than when you are publicly listed. Hence, when we go into destinations, for us, it needs to make sense from a brand perspective. And if we can bring not only our customers, but most certainly if we have the right partner, the right location. And here in Greece, for us, it just makes sense all around. Number one, we have found really a great partner here in Greece, the one that we originally developed the Astir Palace with. And once we have that partnership, it's similarly to our guests. We keep growing together and we keep developing together. And Greece, I saw yesterday on the presentation, has so many attributes to it, makes it so beautiful. And it's not just the nature, the sea, the beach, it's really the culture, the food, and all the islands that have been developed. And this gives us more opportunities. And when we look at our Greek expansion, I'm happy to say that actually tomorrow we will officially announce our next project that is going to soft open in 2025 in Mykonos. And this, yet again, is going to really set, I believe, that island apart. And I think we can bring a lot of good attributes to make this right.
So we have news. You just made news that you're opening 4 seasons in Mykonos. Mr. Andreadis, is it an easy place to do business here? I mean, you had experience with Spain. How easy it is to start a hotel or to do a significant investment here?
Hello, first of all, thank you to eKathimerini and to this amazing place. Thank you, Aegean, Mr. Vasilakis, really something impressive and something was beyond our imagination a few years ago. Well done. And of course, on your question, I go back to 2010, 2012, right? And just to reflect how Greece and Greek tourism was looking back then, that's not so far away, it's 12 years away, with 10 million visitors, with 10 billion income, 12, 13, 14 million visitors. Athens being burned to the ground. I mean, nobody could believe tourism could be where it is today. The product, global chains like Four Seasons not only were totally absent, there were one or two chains operating in Greece with only in Athens. So the gastronomy was at a totally different level. The perception of tourism in the public was on a totally different level. So we need to think and recollect what happened in the last 12 years, right? Because I think in the middle where all the other industries, all the other sectors of the Greek economy went significantly down. Okay, that's a miracle. For me, it's a miracle. And this is mainly because of the people of tourism and the private companies to an extent, in some cases, I have to say during COVID, on some government actions as well, but I have to say limited. So starting from there, when we were so low and we achieved what we achieved, it's only going to go up. The question is, how much up can it go? If we leave it on autopilot, it will go up, but not as much as if we have a strategy and a proper plan. I think Greece is in the very beginning, but we need a lot of things to happen to bring Greece. So the question is, will the 20 billion become 30 by 2030 or 40, 45? This is for me the issue that today we have to contemplate.
What has been the major obstacle that you have found here doing business? I mean, compare with your wide experience from all these areas, what makes it harder to do business here and you would like to see some change?
Look, I mean, as you mentioned, we operate in many different countries. And when I look at the PwC presentation that we just saw earlier, I can confirm that some of those challenges that were highlighted, other countries have the same challenges, right? What is really encouraging to see is the vision that Greece has to address those challenges, most specifically on the infrastructure, and then other elements. And I'm going back to what actually our customers tell us of what the issue is when we develop specifically luxury tourism, is that, for example, there is no parking spots for private jets. So it is those challenges that we are working around. But what is really also very encouraging to see is the vision of the private sector with the government really working together in making it happen and addressing those challenges. I see also some of the recommendations that they put out from PwC. Again, those are recommendations that are not foreign to other countries that were listed that are having a very good or a significant income in GDP from tourism, is the staffing, right? And when I specifically look at the staffing on a seasonal location like Greece, this is a challenge, yes, but this is also an opportunity. And I want to draw maybe a parallel to what we are doing in Astir Palace. That is really for us a very big operation, where every season we hire close to 900 people into the seasonal workforce. And the way that we really have found is that there is opportunities for those people when Greece is lowering its season to ship them out into other locations to gain experience and to be exposed. I was just talking to our general manager this morning. We have about 10 people that are going to Kyoto because in Japan they start a higher season. We have seen actually 20 people that are going to Mauritius. So, and we have the ski resorts that are opening where we can actually again go back to this labor force that is highly qualified and give them an opportunity to work in other of our resorts when they are having their high season.
On labor force that Andrian just spoke about, do you feel that Greece having lower wages coming out of the crisis is a cheap place to get labor force? Is the investment in Greece cheaper than, let's say, in Spain?
Yeah, Eleni, before this I would like, because the question goes around competitiveness and how Greece, for the investor look, I'll try to be very impartial, right? Comparing, say, Greece with Spain or Portugal. Let's start with the pros. The pros of Greece is the beauty and still available space to develop, green fields. which is not the case for Spain, Italy, or Portugal. And when you can, due to the Barcelona protocol, you have to build 200 meters away from the beach. I talk about beach resorts now, okay? So one big thing is at all costs, Greece has to keep out of the Barcelona protocol because it has developed only 3% of the 16,000 square meters, kilometers of coastal land. It's in the very beginning, Greece. It should protect its oil. Its oil is these beautiful coastal areas. This is a big pro. The other pro is around the hospitality, the philoxenia. I was very surprised to see yesterday in the first Gallup that the Greeks don't appreciate how important it is for the guests, the foreign guests, this attribute of the Greek people, the warmth and the philoxenia. Only 3 or 4% of the Greeks see it as a big benefit because obviously we are used to have it every day, whereas 60% talked about the beauty and the weather and the sea and so on. Believe me, this is one of the most important reasons foreigners come to Greece. Okay, so we have a very warm people with in their DNA hospitality. We just need to train them and make them more interested in this. How can this happen? You need a lot. The Prime Minister talked yesterday about the private sector, education. The question was, what can the public do? I tell you, the public can do very little or nothing. We tried to make schools, public schools, in hospitality. It didn't work, you know, these scholars and so on. But I can give you an example of private schools that are growing a lot. For example, in our business, we work with eKathimerini. This year we have 400 students. We subsidize their studies. They come to work for 6 months with normal salaries. They are trained well. And they go to summers, they work well with us, and they can go anywhere. Many more programs integrating private teaching with companies that give them possibilities. This is the way forward. We have to increase this, and of course, we have to open, you know, in a controlled way to bring people from abroad. Believe me, if you find me one guy to clean the dishes in the kitchen in Greece, I will put in the podium there to show it to everybody, okay? There are certain things the Greeks are not willing to do, like all over Europe, irrelevant of the cost. So in the staffing issue, I think is one of the cons is the lack of staff. We can talk about taxation cons, and we can talk about, I guess, planning laws, where we have significant cons as well. But we can talk, I guess, a little bit later.
No, since we are in the labor section, I want to ask you, compared to other countries, is it cheap and taxation that you just mentioned? How is Greece placed in terms of the costs that, is it competitive in the wider Mediterranean region that we are competing?
For me or for Adrian? Go on, Adrian. Go.
Well, if I draw the comparison specifically to Europe, I think it is competitive. But is our industry still interesting, specifically for the younger people to join? And I think this is really where the flexion point is. And we need to become, again, more interesting for younger people to join. And I think the schooling is one aspect that can make a tremendous difference. Now, maybe 2 aspects. One aspect that the government, in my opinion, did very well is the tax relief that was given. Because not only it gives an opportunity for people to come to Greece if you have a shortage of staff, but it actually incentivizes the Greek to come back to Greece. And this has made a tremendous impact. The other element that is really important for us as a company, when we look at the workforce and when we hire the workforce, we look for attitude and we train for skill. And the one element that we have found overwhelmingly positive in Greece is the people, they have a genuine approach towards service, and they have a genuine approach and that attitude that we are looking for. And then we say the rest, we can bring them and we can help them with the people that have already grown the experience with us. Because ultimately you can have a beautiful hotel. We have great partners that build beautiful hotels for us, but the heartbeat of a hotel will always be the people that work in it. They are making the difference. They are the ones that really have the key in their hand to unlock the experience, and that in Greece has really made a tremendous difference for us in our sector.
Yeah. Look, I will give you a very specific example. Despite the fact that there have been certainly improvements, I note one very noteworthy, was announced yesterday after a couple of years of talking, but never late than never. For example, tips in a month's time will not be any more taxed, and they don't have any, taxes on labor, on payroll taxes, etc. Why this is very important? Because there are apps now where you can tip with Apple Pay the staff on the spot without interfering. So it can be a US company doing the whole app, and the money is transferred immediately to the employee, to his account, without any. This is a huge step. It's up to 300 euros per month. A simple thing. Finally, the government understood it, the Prime Minister supported, because there are many things around, white and black and so on. And this gives to everyone the possibility to have 300 euros net per month on top, very easily transferred to them, in front facing, obviously. I guess, but not only, people tip also kitchens and so on, or taxi, or whatever, okay? So there are some simple things they can do. But let me stay on the base. Let me compare a waiter in Greece of us with a waiter in Spain, okay? In the same hotel, same kind of position, okay? In Greece, a typical salary is 1,000, 1,100 net per month. In Spain, it's about double, 2,000 to 2,200, okay? This is the average pay, okay? So one would say the cost in Spain is double. It's not double. Why? Because the payroll taxes in Spain for this range are much lower. So in the end, to the company, the cost is about 30% higher in Spain than in Greece. So one issue is the very high payroll taxes that grow enormously on this. Second, add to this in the attractiveness of Greece versus Spain, that the VAT in Spain is 10%, and in Greece, as yesterday it was explained to the Prime Minister, said no more, thank God, because it's 16.5%. If we add VAT between 13 and 24, plus the local tax, plus the environment tax. So we have 6.5 points more on the turnover of a business. So this balances totally the cost of the payroll increase of Spain to Greece. So think of an investment where an investor looks at the two countries. If we exclude the beauty, the philoxenia, and the fact that we can build closer to the beach in Greece, in Spain they don't have a lot to build, we have a real serious issue of competitiveness. I mean, Andrea, of course, is nice, he will not tell you it's not competitive. And totally, it can be competitive, but believe me, I see how much interest is for waiters in Spain, not only from Spanish. A lot of Greeks go there, a lot of Romanians, because 2,200 is a very good salary over 10 months employment, So we have to really think very carefully, because in Greece, the government is sucking the money because they cannot catch the black part of the economy, whereas in Spain, the money enters the pockets of the people, which I think the Prime Minister has explained is one of his main reasons. But to see money in the pockets of the people, you have also to be efficient in taxing, right?
Okay, clear. In terms of the zoning framework, I mean, there's a lot of talk about this design that's happening now. And it feels that things kind of work opposite in this country, that there's a lot of licensing at the beginning of a new place or an island, and there's a lot of building that's allowed, and then laws are retrospectively designed. Does that happen in other places, and how do you think this new zoning framework should be in Greece?
I don't think I can judge and say if it happens in other places. But I can say when we come in as a company, and specifically our partners here in Greece, for that matter, it's AGC, is they go to the highest authorities in order to get the zoning and the licensing approved. And I think it's very important. And ultimately about the compliance, also when we operate hotels, we need to keep that clean, and having a partner that is very committed towards doing that is key when we operate. Now, when we talk zoning, and I hear a lot the term over-tourism, I do believe that there is a relationship to that, and I do understand in certain areas in Greece there is a moratorium in place in order to build or not build new hotels until a caring study is performed of what can actually...
In Mykonos, actually, there's a moratorium on hotels, so I hope you got your license already.
And absolutely, and this is exactly what I try to say. When we go into destinations with our partners, we make sure that this is all clear and clean. And when I look at the buildability that we have on our resort that we're going to open in Mykonos, it's going to be a 94-key hotel on a 63,000 square meter plot, meaning that we are just short of this 15% buildability, so there is space. And when we talk about over-tourism, tourism is our business, and we need to protect it. And when we talk about protecting it in an environment like Greece, I think that just becomes twofold more important, because the sustainability aspect of it is one, but then the social and people aspect of it is the other. And as a company, that's where we try to make a difference, because we recognize that what we do, and through our Four Seasons for Good project, we need to protect the environment. And we believe that the environment is protected through the zoning that the countries have in place to avoid that over-tourism that could happen in certain periods of the year or on certain destinations that are just bluntly beautiful, right?
Do you think that the zoning that we have in place right now is enough, Mr. Andreadis?
Yeah,
By the way, I'm Swiss. I'm also very diplomatic.
That's a very long story, okay? I mean, look, we talk about this planning of tourism for Greece since I don't know how many decades, right? The reality is, I think, obvious, right? Despite all these efforts that are done by the government, I have to admit, this government, this Prime Minister is quite focused. The reality is that one rule fits all, which is still the way Greece has building to it out of the town environment of city zoning. You have a 20% coverage, flat, 2 floors. Wherever you bid in Greece, in Mykonos, in Chalkidiki, in Peloponnese, out of Athens, is one law, okay? And the Council of State has repeatedly said, guys, make proper zoning per area. This is a difficult project, it's a lot, and believe me, this local planning is not going to get to this level. So if we want Greece, and that's Yadis yesterday, that's was talked about it, real strategic plan means a detailed zoning. How do the Spanish, for example, and not only the Spanish address it? They leave this to the local authorities. Here in Greece, because we don't have competent local authorities, we try to do it centrally, and that is a result, we have one rule fits all. I mean, you cannot compare, obviously, Mykonos and Santorini or a small island in the Cyclas with Peloponnese or mainland Greece or Epirus. It's crazy to try with one law to cover it all. It's a lot of work needed, and I think we are in the very beginning. Although I have to say, the Prime Minister impressed me yesterday. I mean, he talked about pools. I have to say, this is, I have to commend him, because knowing that pools in a hotel consume only 2 to 3% of the water consumption is something very specific. Even the Spanish don't know it, and they limit the pools because, it's very politically to say, no, pools are for the rich, tourists, so limit them. So he understands the needs. It just is so big, the issue of not having done the work properly for decades, I have to say, right? That is a monstrous issue that Greece has at some point to address in order to not have one rule fits all. I don't understand why in Greece, for example, in mainland areas, you cannot build, like in Spain, 40% in specific areas, high with 3-4 floors, which makes it more compact, A more nice product is Four Seasons in Athens, a bad product because it has 4 floors. It's an old building. No, and if you have bungalows as well, it's an ideal way of hotel in the mainland could be developed. So I think the one, of course, in the C class, you cannot do it, right? Maybe 2 floors is too much, right? So, I mean, we have to understand that a lot of work in planning and strategy has to be done. We are in the very beginning, and the central government has to find very good outsource support. You cannot have the ministers and the people in the ministry with SET and the others designing Greece. Forget it.
So one suit doesn't fit all. That's definitely your approach. I'm happy that you're more optimistic than from yesterday's talk with the Prime Minister.
It's a beginning.
It's a beginning, at least. We have very little time. Just one last question. There's so much talk about over-tourism. We discussed that yesterday also. There was a lot of analysis. The government and the PM doesn't really accept the term over-tourism, but there have been some steps to tackle it recently. We have seen imposing taxes to hotels and fees to visitors. Do you think that's the way forward?
I think we now need to let the process take place, right? Those areas or clusters that have been identified with a potential over-tourism, I think they have now that moratorium in place, so kind of the bleeding stopped at this point in time. And as my colleague Andreas is saying, I think maybe there needs to be a third-party involvement in order to go in there and not just look at the zoning of how much and how high can we build, but how much can the destination still absorb in terms of tourism, and what infrastructure needs to be built in order to support that.
Mr. Andreas, do you think taxing hotels and visitors is a good idea?
Again, a very big issue. I'm very happy to hear the Prime Minister put it in the right sense. Look, let's take again, I'm a very practical guy, okay? So let's take again 2 examples. Let's take Mallorca, okay? And let's take Rhodos. Okay? Mallorca is an island twice the size of Rhodos and has 1/3 of the whole income of Greece. So in an island double than Rhodos, it concentrates one. Believe me, if you go to Mallorca, it has an airport in Palma of 30 million, I think bigger than Athens airport or similar, right? Again, similar in size. Okay? If you see, and you have 2 Attikiothos going to the 2 sides, if you see the infrastructure, the quality of the infrastructure, the quality of how they handle the local authorities, the whole situation, you certainly don't feel there is over-tourism. And if it is, it's mainly in the city of Palma because of Airbnb and the issues around rental, increasing rental, which we have in Greece as well. So over-tourism is related directly to 3 issues. First, infrastructure, and mainly quality of infrastructure. Secondly, the very fast growth of Airbnb, particularly in Greece, from nothing to 1 million beds in a few years, which obviously presses in many ways the system, right? This is the second big way. And the third way is the cruise business, okay? If we address this with a plan, I think Greece can easily handle, many more people and many, many more receipts. And one comment on the receipts, because I saw before PwC, I think the bankers or the authorities collecting numbers have to sit down and discuss a little bit, because I see Spain with double the visitors of Greece, 92 billion, okay? And Greece with half the visitors, 22. I don't believe Spain has doubled the income of Greece per visitor. This, I tell you, is a different way of counting. I think Spain counts the total effect, where Greece counts only the direct effect. So when they talk about increasing or decreasing interest, I think they have to align a little bit of how we measure the numbers so we have a comparable number and we can really see if Spain is really bringing so much per visitor than Greece.
Unfortunately, our time has run up. Thank you very much for this lively discussion, and let's hope the authorities have heard what you have just said.
We would like to thank the two gentlemen. Adrian Messerly is the 5th generation of his family working in hotel business. And Mr. Andriadis has studied civil engineer, so he's much more practical and very focused on what he does. Thank you, Eleni. Ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ και τους δύο ομιλήσαντες. Let's go to the next. The next one is going to be in English too. I had to have a master class to pronounce the name correctly of our speaker, Carlo van de Weyer, Singularity University General Manager, Eindhoven Artificial Intelligence Systems Institute. Ο κύριος αυτός, ο Carlo van de Weyer, πρόκειται να μας μιλήσει για τις εκθετικές τεχνολογίες.
Shall discuss transponential technologies and the challenges for tourism. Those are technological tools that may assist, support in an exponential way.
Van der Weyer, yeah, thank you very much.
Was that correct?
That was...
Okay,
that was,
the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. That was actually the best way somebody from the... Oh, yes, music. I get here with music and everything. They promised me fireworks, but okay, anything. But that was an impressive way how to pronounce Van der Weyer. It's the best way a Mediterranean person ever did that. So thank you very much. Kalimera, that's not the last Greek word that you hear from me, but despite the fact that I had 6 years of ancient Greeks on school, I must do this in English, but I know that's perfectly fine with you. That's just another sign of your perfect hospitality here in Greece. That's in your DNA. For the next half an hour or so, I'm going to talk to you about exponential technologies and what it means for tourism and mobility, which is very important for tourism. And that's something that is a big problem that always comes up with human beings, this exponential development, things that come very rapidly, much more rapidly than we expect. And we humans are not so very good to cope with these kind of exponential changes. Which has to do, we cannot help that, that's something that happened in evolution. We are linear thinking human beings. So in evolution, when there was a deer running like this, we know that we had to shoot the arrow like that so that it would encounter the deer a bit further. So we had to shoot a little bit ahead. That's all linear and approaches, etc. And that's something that we are very capable in. But exponential, we do not really understand. Exponential comes very slow, but at a certain moment it comes hard. That means, for instance, if something doubles every time, we always underestimated how fast this goes. For instance, if you would have a drop of water in this hangar over here, and a second later you have 2 drops of water, and a second later 4 drops, 8 drops, 16 drops, it only would take about 30 to 31 seconds before the entire hangar would be filled with water. And about 20-25 seconds later, you use all the water in the entire world. That's how fast it goes when things happen exponentially. And in the beginning, it's always a disappointment because it's slow, and then at a certain moment it happens and it comes much faster. And we always underestimate this one, and we are amazed what's happening, and that's a bit what happens. One of these examples is the fact that although we always complain that the next generation will be worse off than this one, and things in the old ages decades ago used to be better, people get richer and richer in an almost exponentially way. And this exponential wealth, it's not only happening in Europe, it's everywhere happening, although like a bit behind. We have to work on the difference, but still people get richer by the year. That's still on a long term. There will be some hubs every time. But the thing is that the mobility and transport consequences for such a further developing world are, without any doubt, that people will travel further. That's in our genes. We want to explore. And once we have the opportunity, you always see this, when people have the opportunity to travel further, they will travel further. And the other thing is that we will also buy more stuff. We are hunter-gatherers, and it is hardwired in our brain that we will go farther and buy more stuff. And that's actually also happening, just to take one of the many problems of tourism, is of course that this comes with kind of a bit of troubles. By the way, I see some people making pictures of my slides. If you want to have a copy of my slide set, find me on LinkedIn, keep on the discussion. There will also be some challenging statements that I will make, so please find me on LinkedIn, you will have a copy of the slides, no problem. But this is just the carbon footprint of tourism, and the biggest one here is flying. And this is a problem that also, because we travel more, will also increase in the future. So we have to act. And the thing is that if big problems come towards humanity, we always see about mainly three different strategies that people follow. And the first one is a very popular strategy, even on political things, is just to hope for the best. We'll be fine, you know. Climate has come up now. Finally, we in the Netherlands also have this fantastic climate as you have in Greece. Didn't really work out yesterday, but okay, we'll be fine. Earth will be. Let's not spend too much time on this one. We should agree that we are doing some very dangerous chemical and physical experiments with the atmosphere and with the world, etc. And dangerous experiments can go right, but if they go wrong, we're too late. So there's another strategy that is quite popular, that we should be satisfied. We should consume less. We should stop growing. Post-growth, degrowth, whatever you have. This is very sympathetic, and we should also strive to limit the use of resources and everything. But this is also not a strategy that I have a lot of confidence in. For the first reason, because it doesn't work. There's no real successful track record of consuming less. Every progress that we achieved in the last centuries is not because we stopped using more, etc. We kept on using more. So I don't see it happening now as well. The other thing is that by definition, it's a part solution. If you consume a little bit less, like in the pandemic, we didn't travel, so we had 7% less CO2. So what should you then do to make that 20%? And then still you have to solve 80% of the problem. And the third one is that it's a little bit elitish. It's only people on the top of the pyramid say from now it's enough. And people at the bottom, where most of humanity is, never talk about degrowth. They still are on the verge to grow, and why not? They have the right to do so as well. It's like from people say, 5 times flying, that's a little bit too much. Let's all limit to 2 times flying per year. And the 82% of humanity that never has been in a plane should not start flying, this kind of thing. Just to support my case, there was a big dream some decades ago. There was this new generation that wanted to degrowth, you know? The generation Y came up, say, beginning of this century. And then we had something like the Flugscheme or the flight shame. They were probably not gonna fly more because they had all this environmental sensibility. Now, okay, that's cool, but if you look at the figures, you see actually that they're also called the millennials over there. You see that they actually travel much more even than the older generations. And the next generation, the Generation Z, although they're still not yet in their 20s, they even travel more than the older people as well. So what you also see in research is that although they all claim, yeah, we are environmental sensible, etc., and we will fly less, they're not doing that in practice. That always has been shown. Actually, The Guardian already denounced flight shame as death. Having said that, then we remain still with this problem, and it might even grow. And therefore, if you think that you trust that the next generation will be fine, just look at the figures. Because in God we trust, and the rest has to prove with figures. We cannot trust that it automatically will go right. So if you see the cumulated annual growth rates that are predicted by all the sources, is that the tourist arrivals will keep on growing even faster than any other number. The aviation passenger kilometers will grow, and also the number of cars, because they also say that this new generation will not have cars. They will. Maritime freight and Argotons, we keep on buying more stuff. That means, and this is an exponential development, every times 4% means that in 25 years, a problem will just double. So if we fail to act, the problem will double. That means actually that we have to go for a third, and that's innovate ourselves out of trouble, and that's always what we have done in history. And now again, we have to innovate ourselves out of trouble. And just picking this one thing of the flying. So how would we innovate ourselves out of trouble? A lot of people say we should stimulate people using trains. Now, I can be relatively short, especially if you're a country with a lot of islands. This is not really a sensible solution. But just to be short on this one, you can. And again, I challenge you, or I invite you to contact with me or the organization to share my slides. And there's a little bit of a study material over there why I explain that is not a sensible solution. And in the next 30 seconds, you don't have to follow me. I give you a very short wrap-up on why train is not an alternative for flight, even when you're not on an island. And that is this. A lot of people claim that flying is very bad for the environment and train is much better. And that's true if you only compare the climate things. This is the societal damage So it's 0.4 for train only, and the climate effects of flying are much higher. But CO2 is just one part of the equation. There's so much more that also is being damaged in the societal. So if you also take the noise, which with trains is even higher than with planes, and also the habitat damage, because there's all this infrastructure you have to build, not for planes but for trains, then you see the difference already smaller. And then there's one big thing, that you also have to build infrastructure. And infrastructure always costs money. So there's a little bit low, but the total external cost, inclusive the cost of the infrastructure and also the subsidies, means actually that now already high-speed rail is a very much big societal burden than flying. So already today it's better to fly than to train, and if somebody disagrees with me, send them to me. I can handle. This is just a small wrap-up of something that's very complicated. You can forget about it, but the most important thing is that we still have a problem with flying. So should we fly electrically? Over there is another solution. Just take out the engines. That might also be a solution to make flying redundant, and probably all the passengers have to do. I don't know how that works. Electric flying might work, not in this way. We will see a bit of electric flying. My statement here is that it will be up to 50 people, and I think up to 500 kilometers. For the very small connections, and as they call it, regional air mobility. We just heard about the private jets, and I see a big future for relatively small airplanes. This is also a nice source to do a little bit of studying how all these connections, these small airports, in Europe we have about 3,000 of smaller airports, might be connected electrically. It's a kind of a new way of doing your mobility. But it's not going to solve this kind of flying. That's not possible to do that electrically, also not in the future. For that we have to go to, and you probably heard about that, making sustainable aviation fuels. Circular fuels you can call them, or electrical fuels, or synth fuels, whatever you call them. It is fuel made out of electricity. You get CO2 out of the air, you get purified water, you get electricity, and there's a chemical process which is not too complicated. It's already possible today that actually you make your fuel. And yes, this fuel also produces CO2, but it's exactly the same amount of CO2 that you get out of the air when producing the fuel. So it's therefore a circular fuel. I have no doubt that this is going to be the future. It is not a question if this is going to be the future, but more when and at what cost. And that's a big discussion. And here's another underestimation of the things that are developing exponentially. Because actually the only component here is energy. CO2 getting out of the air is a known process. It only costs quite a bit of energy. So when energy gets cheaper, this fuel will get cheaper. And energy is getting that cheap. If you just look at another exponential development, this is the number of solar cells and the price of solar getting down in an exponential way. It doesn't look like an exponential figure, but that's because the axes are logarithmic. So we are producing so much solar cells, and it goes at so low cost that at a certain moment, and we always underestimate this because we think linearly, and you also see that we overperform, and we're going to almost free energy, which also means in due course that I think, and that's my statement, that actually these new fuels, and don't give me a term, I would estimate 25 years from now we are already in the middle of it, that we have these synthetic fuels. The number one consequence of that one is that actually you can also scratch the climate damage out of this equation, and then, and you see it in the bottom right, the aviation is more or less neutral from a cost perspective and societal cost perspective, something that trains will never, never, ever achieve. Therefore, my statement, summarizing the last minute, is that aviation will be the most sustainable way of mid and long distance travel, by far. These fuels, by the way, can also be used by cruise ships. Cruise ships have other problems that you probably know more of than I, but these are the same fuels that probably also will be used by shipping, at least scratching one problem out of the equation. So this is one statement of exponential things that I foresee in the future to come, that a lot of people do not see coming because of the exponentialism. The other one is on AI. That's actually Moore's law, which is also an exponential development, just claiming that actually computers get smarter twice as much every 1.5 years. This is just, here, again, a logarithmic scale on the left. And just to visualize this, this is actually an impression of Moore's law. This is a 5 megabyte hard drive in 1956. 5 megabyte is about one song on MP3. So here you see one song being uploaded in an airplane, and nobody around that time would have thought of making music digitally. And that's the underestimation that when digitization comes, it started with the CD, and then the CD was disrupted by iTunes, and then iTunes was disrupted by Spotify, and that is how unpredictable things happen when digitization strikes. The fact that everybody now these days is talking about AI is that this intelligence growth is continuing, and it is starting to actually reach human intelligence, more or less. So we should think about how we are going to cope in the future with these machines that get as clever as we are. And I also want to just highlight what I think that would mean for the tourism industry, because it changes the entire society, and especially your industry, and I think for the better. The thing is that the definition of artificial intelligence, it's a little bit a difficult one, because a lot of people think from, oh yeah, AI is coming, but I don't know exactly what it is. You may be a little bit confused. You probably will be confused after my talk as well, but I hope you will be confused on a higher level, at least. And the thing is that a colleague professor of mine once, Dan Irely, he discussed it as, and sorry, I'm just quoting here, artificial intelligence is somewhat like teenage sex. Everybody talks about it. Nobody really knows how to do it. Everybody thinks everybody else is doing it, so everybody claims they are doing it. So if you think from, oh, I'm missing the boat here because everybody does artificial intelligence and I don't mind too much. Everybody's in the same position here. Just as a definition of artificial intelligence, this is an important one. It is machines with goal-directed adaptive behavior, because that's the definition of intelligence. We have a goal in mind, that's what makes us intelligent, and we can adapt how we act in order to achieve that goal. So a classical machine, and that's just a summary of how artificial intelligence works, a classical machine says you have a program on your machine, and there's an input in, and there's an output coming out. With artificial intelligence, the fundamental difference is that you give it an input, and you give it an output, and the machine itself will sort out how to achieve that output. And this is a little bit scary. So these machines start reprogramming themselves, and that's a real difference with classical computers. And when they reprogram themselves, they can also decide what to do. Now, these are just Boston Dynamic robots, humanoid robots, some robots we can identify with. And let's make them in order to put boxes on shelves, or, as we just heard, wash the dishes, because that's stupid work that we don't want to do. Now, because this is a humanoid mode, this is an interesting thing. I don't know if you recognize that you feel a little bit sorry for this robot. Huh? You have some sort of feeling for the robot. I don't want to stand in your way here, but you see that actually you might tend that if you were a programmer, you would also like to program or code a few lines that if the guy with the beard shows up and starts bullying you again, that you raise the mechanical middle finger or do something like that, you know? And that's something that we want to already project our human behavior to them. Or it gets worse. That's too bad for this robot. This is just a couple of machines and bolts and iron, etc. So there's really nothing happening here. Now it gets up, and then your coding comes in and it goes to find the guy with the beard. So the thing is that this is about, you probably have seen this on the YouTube. This humanoid is about 8 years old, and every 1.5 years, as I just said, it got twice as intelligent. So if you look at the more recent version of the same robot, same mechanics, only having software updates, you see this one, and it's the same one. It only got cleverer. Oh, I think this is a little bit too heavy. Yeah, that's my mistake. I think oh, here we go. So that looks already more impressive. And now it starts playing around a little bit. I hope that works. Here. So far, the robots, and I can do this as well. But, hoppakee. I cannot do that. I'm not going to leave the stage in such a way here. Oh, you saw him doing this, huh? That's pre-programmed. As soon as robots start doing this to show off to other robots in order to heighten their chance for reproduction with other robots or something, then it gets scary. Then it's artificial intelligence. But there's a lot of artificial intelligence in this robot to be more stable, etc., and to do all these nice tricks that they can do. The thing is that now they start. What if they do the dishes, and what they do if they start taking over traffic, for instance, with the self-driving car? Then a lot of people say, yeah, that's good because they're better, because they always follow the rules. And that's a little bit difficult. If you're in Athens traffic or even in Amsterdam traffic or whatever kind of traffic, nobody exactly follow the rules. If you're behind somebody who fully 100% sticks to the rules, you're quite annoyed, and that's not really fluent traffic, you know, especially in Athens. That's a total different not following the rules system. So what do you do in order to invite those robots into our society where not everybody follows the rules as strictly as other people? The thing is that you can do two things. The one thing is to condition, to prepare everything for automation. And that's just to make everything very predictable. An example of a conditioned state is a bowling alley, you know? A bowling is always predictable, and this is where machines are at its best. This is how AI works. You just say, try to make a strike, all pins in one throw, so it starts doing that, and it's a little bit clumsy, and at a certain moment it starts learning and reprogramming itself until it knows perfectly how to do this, and then, because it's a conditioned state, it's always the same, pins always in the same order, there are no pedestrians, and probably this robot will be quite well in making it a very boring game, as such. Okay. That's what it will come out. This is real AI. The other thing what you can do is that you also, because the thing is that if we would adapt the society to this kind of conditioning, then traffic in Athens, if everybody would follow the rules, would come to a complete standstill. Or you put traffic lights over there, that's a little bit of German response, to try to organize everything, then probably the throughput of traffic will go down. So our society is really turning because we do flexibly interpret the rules. That's how good companies work as well. You have a goal, and it doesn't matter how you achieve this goal, as long as you fix to some rules, but not strictly follow your contract, and that's the thing. The other thing what you can do is that you, as we were just doing in your mind probably when you saw this robot being bullied, that we adapt the robots to the real world, and that you would allow the robots to also flexibly interpret the rules. And then is a little bit getting, I think, dangerous. So in the future, if we would allow these robots also to, like us, flexibly interpret the rules, it probably would lead to the next version of the Boston Dynamic robots as such. So, okay. Just to reassure you on this one, this is not Boston Dynamics, it's Boston Dynamics. You might have seen this on the internet. This is not real. It's nice to see the making of, because there's this guy in a green suit being really being kicked his ass and sort of. But exactly, this might summarize it well. If we just release AI and let it do what it wants, then we will end up doing the dishes, and they do the important work. They will, we will carry the boxes, and they will align us. So this is, to my point of view, how we should welcome this technology to do all the coloring inside the lines in a conditioned state. That's where automation should take place, and our only added value as human beings in the future might be that we are able to color outside the lines without things getting out of the hand. And this is something that you should apply, and how you should approach this new kind of technology of AI, because we should embrace it. And you probably worked with ChatGPT. Who worked with ChatGPT? Yeah? Oh, that's the third, half of it. All the rest, start playing with it. It's nice, at least to get a grip what's happening on AI. But I had quite some fierce discussion. I had some good discussions with my wife, who is a teacher, Dutch, so language teacher, and she says, "Yeah, what's this ChatGPT about?" So my students cannot write an essay anymore because they ask ChatGPT, and they just hide some errors just to fool me. I know how they are, you know. So what should I do with this? I said, that's good, because I work at the university, and my students they work for 7 months on a project, and then 1 month is just writing a report, and now it's only 1 week, so they have 3 extra weeks to do the research where they really excel at. Okay, we didn't really come to an agreement where we normally always immediately agree on anything, but this is actually how you approach it. Making a report and writing and following just some guidelines is something that is coloring inside the lines. And what she now also sees already and worked with students is that actually, and if you work with ChatGPT, you ask it a question, it comes with the stories, and that's not intended, and you then repeat the question and the prompt, as they call it, the question mark, let's say. And then just at a certain moment, your prompt is so long that you actually almost already written it yourself. And that's the thing that happens. The genuine intelligence that we use, it moves to the prompt. And if you do so and you leave a lot of work to the machines, the thing is then, that's the essential thing why you should work with AI, that it improves, enormously improves your productivity with about 66%. Now, I also asked, I'm not a specialist in the tourism, I'm a very satisfied customer, especially here in Greece, but I also asked ChatGPT from, okay, what does it mean for tourism? And maybe there's one tip over there on the right corner, no yapping. If you add no yapping to ChatGPT, you don't get these very long, interesting answers. It keeps it very short and concise. This is a tip that's only already worth listening to me half an hour. So that's one thing. But this is what it came up with. And then I charged Perplexity, that's also a tool, and I asked AI again, etc. And at a certain moment, I got about 4 lines where I really see that there will be a lot happening in tourism. And it's these 4. Hyper-personalization. AI knows the customer, although you don't know why and how, but AI will know your customer better than you do. So it also will enable you to personalize it much better. We will hearing about all the data that's available and how you should use it after the break. So take attention, because AI, when access to this data, will help you to personalize. The dynamic prices. It will put much more intelligent dynamic prices and dynamic pricing can help with a large amount of problems, of course. Predictive analysis, it can predict what's happening in 6 weeks from now much better than you do, because it takes everything into account, even weather and all kind of other stuff. And it even does some VR, virtual reality, or augmented reality pre-travel experience to just put extra experience on that one. Now, the 2 elements is that it will improve your productivity, but it also can improve the quality. And for those who haven't worked with AI tooling, we just had ChatGPT, but there's a very low barrier in order to just start playing around with it. This is just some of the tooling that you can play with, and they always have this free entry that the first couple of weeks you can just play with it for free, and then they ask a bit of money, but you can decide what to do with it afterwards. So I just call on you to start experimenting with all this stuff. One thing I experimented with is, it's not even on this list, is the tool HeyGen. I don't know if you noticed, this video to video. You heard me speaking now English for quite some time. And in the Netherlands, people even hear, you can hear I'm from the Netherlands probably through my English. In the Netherlands, they even hear that I'm from the south of the Netherlands, so not very impressive. Now, HeyGen is a video to video that can have me talk any language. Just listen to me and be impressed. That's me last week in the United States somewhere. It's a bit shaky, but you get the point. People of the Reimagine Tourism Congress. You will probably notice that I'm already speaking English much better than I was just a few seconds ago. And all of that is thanks to artificial intelligence. Με αυτή την τεχνητή νοημοσύνη μπορώ φυσικά να μιλήσω. Και ελληνικά, όπως ακούτε τώρα έχω κάνει 6 χρόνια αρχαία ελληνικά στο σχολείο μου, αλλά σήμερα μπορείς να κάνεις πολύ λίγα με αυτά. Αλλά τώρα νομίζω ότι πάει αρκετά καλά, αν και δεν μπορώ να το ελέγξω γιατί δεν το μιλάω. Ελπίζω να μην κάνω λάθη. Μπορώ να το εφαρμόσω εξίσου καλά και στα ρωσικά ή γαλλικά ή αγγλικά ή οτιδήποτε άλλο. Δεν θα μπορούσε να σημαίνει αυτό για τη βιομηχανία τουρισμού. Αλλά είναι απλώς για να δείξω πόσο γρήγορα γίνονται οι βελτιώσεις με την τεχνητή νοημοσύνη. Τώρα θα επιστρέψω ξανά στα αγγλικά, αν δεν σας πειράζει. Yeah, you don't have to applaud because it was not me. It wasn't me. I heard it say Anglikas and I have to go back on stage. I hope that it's correct what it said. I cannot check it. I did the input in Dutch, and this is the thing. But just imagine how you can use this also for personalization and to watch your customers, etc. The thing is with this one, I also used this at our summit last year to welcome everybody, and I ended up with one key message from enjoy yourselves. And then it's apparently, because I translated it back to Dutch, it says not enjoy yourself, it translated as have fun with yourself. I said, oh, that's a little bit edgy, you know? And this is the other thing. AI makes mistakes, and most like they're funny. This was an AI engine that just could follow the ball during the pandemic so that the supporters of this club could see their club playing. But then they had a bold linesman, and the sun was shining on his head, so the AI constantly followed the person, and that's another thing. I can have another half an hour of all the mistakes that AI make, but this is just a lesson that you have to make. It moves to the prompt, the intelligence, but also to the checking. You have to do the checking at last. So AI is not going to replace people, but because of this huge potential in increasing quality and in productivity, people that work with AI will replace the people that cannot work with AI. And it's not as complicated as you thought, so please start experimenting. Does this mean that we're all out of jobs? Are they going to kick us out? And what kind of jobs are we going to do in the future? And this is a very important last message that I have, is that actually also what happened to farmers. We used to be all farmers, and now farmers is only 1 or 2% of the people. If you would have to explain 150 years ago to farmers what we are doing for kind of jobs now, that we even have emoji translators, you know, that's not explainable. And the essence of the jobs of the future is that they will be on top of Maslow's pyramid. All the bottom things, Maslow is what thrives us, you know, physical needs like food, water, and security, etc. And if we get the technology to sort that out, we can actually more or less focus on the top of Maslow's pyramid. And that's where the future are. And that's all about experience. And look what happened to the music industry. The music got for free. I paid a lot on CDs and LPs. My children have music for free. Yet they spend the same amount on music because they go to festivals and concerts much more than I did. Only the rich people used to have coffee. Now coffee, because of some logistical wonders, is almost free. Yet we pay €3 for a gluten-free frappuccino with a shot of caramel and your name written on it. All experience. And that's your business. The economy moves more and more to experience, and that's where you're at. So summarizing where we and the computers are, computers will do the bottom, they will do the coloring inside the lines in a conditioned state, in an unconditioned state. They have the written rules, we can flourish in the unwritten rules. We have to initiate the work and check the work, and they do all the work in the middle. That's the artificial intelligence, and we need more of our genuine intelligence. Recap, I'll leave you with this one. Wealth increases. Despite everybody saying that we are going to be far worse off, people will inherently travel more. So all the signs are on red, although you have some problems. The future is about experience, and that's in your DNA. That's a good movement. People will relatively spend more of their budget towards your industry. AI will increase productivity and improve quality, and experiment with all the tools that there are. It's very low barrier. Synthetic fuels, just as a remark, they will make aviation the most sustainable mode, which is important for your business. And the last one is, yeah, tourism. All the signs are on green, but I know that there are a lot of problems. But we have to innovate ourselves out of these problems. AI will help with that one, but actually let me put it differently. You have to innovate us out of problems, and I beforehand would like to wholeheartedly in advance thank you for that. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mark van der Weyer, thank you for this enjoyable presentation. Μακάρι να είχε βγει η AI όταν δίναμε για certificates.
Well, I wish AI would be there when we would sit exams for our English certificates. Now we have a lunch break, and our next meeting is at 2:30, so you can speak amongst you, have something to, you know, have a bite, because we still have some interesting talks afterwards.